Hi, and welcome to Quest Podcast, a radio show that will help you not only claim your awareness around the concept of power, body, beauty, voice, and the arts of your life, but truly embody it. I'm your host, Estelle Thompson. You are here to widen your lens on the unfiltered and uncurated conversation we have in my Quest membership program. And best yet, you'll get real life, tangible tools to stay real and true to you. Each season, we will interview incredible, knowledgeable guests, and you'll educate and uplift as we strive to live whole and not perfect. Welcome. Hi, Quest. Welcome to the show. Today, we explore and dive deep in the magic. Yes, I said the magic of grief. And truly, it's a constant line here at Quest Podcast to talk about grief because I believe grief work really is soul work. My guest today educates us on how building a relationship with grief can truly empower your relationship with yourself and your life. I wanted this episode to be a flashlight into the holistic and soulful world of women's bodies in relation to processing grief. How can we embrace death with our whole hearts and stay present in our bodies through grief? How can we heal and unite with the softness of our bodies that hold our traumas, grief stories, and hurts? How can we carry what we have in our hearts with grace and ease? Today, talking to us from the land down under, my friend and yoga teacher, Sheila Ferguson, has been weaving her way through Australia's yoga community for the past decade since leaving her home in Halifax. With her teachings rooted in Anusara lineage, she teaches a strong focus on alignment and expansion. Her classes are powerful yet accessible, and one I really, really, really want to attend one day. Sheila's teaching are inspired from the great outdoors, her relationships, grief, and most recently, motherhood. She lives and teaches from a place of compassion, and it is her greatest hope that her offerings highlight the divine in all bodies, experiences, and challenges that life has to offer. And on a personal note, I met Sheila first at the Kabe Hall where she was visiting her family, and a mutual friend of ours dragged her to my classes. And it was love at first breath. And Sheila feels like a yoga sister, kindred soul to me always. Hi.
Hi, beautiful. So happy to be talking with you today. It's been a while.
Been a while, I know. And it is night for you, it is morning for me, but we're just going to rock and roll this. The first question I always ask my guest is, because at Quest we are striving to live aware, bold, and whole. I'm asking you, what makes you feel alive today?
Being outside. I'm outside right now, actually. But today, yeah, I've been a little bit unwell the past couple of days. So getting out, I actually did some sun soaking today, went for a walk in the noontime sun, which is a bit of a no-no over here, but yeah, just got nice and warm and sweaty. And now it's really cool and breezy out, which is nice.
Oh my goodness. And I know I've read your bio and everything, but I would love, before we dive in our subject, tell us about yourself. Tell us how you ended up in Australia so far. And at Quest, we call it like my she story, like who you are professionally, personally, and just with the subject, with your grief story as well, and anything you'd like to share in relation to our grief subject today. We'd
Okay.
love to hear it. We want to get to know you.
Okay. Well, yeah, I've been in Australia for 12 years. I can't even remember the date that I landed here. It was September something. So I've just had like my anniversary has just gone by. And I came here in a different relationship than the one that I'm in now. And it's been a wild ride. When I came here, I didn't really know what I was going to do for work. And like, I guess I came with the intention to stay. There was something that had struck me even before I left Halifax. I was only dabbling in yoga then, like just going to like the good life. But there was something, I had been a bartender in Halifax and I was pretty like party, fast paced living. And I just kind of felt like that wasn't the natural me, not surprisingly. And yeah, I was kind of struck by yoga a little bit, but got into it some more when I moved here, actually with my ex's mom. And then Lululemon was actually coming to Australia. And they were opening a store in Brisbane where I live. And I was like, I'm going to work there. I want to have like my own friends. I want to, kind of get into this yoga life a little bit more. And I got a job when they opened the store here. And I started like just as a casual for a couple of months, but really quickly was promoted into a store management role. And I worked with Lululemon for like 6 years here and like opened stores all over the state that I live in. And in working for Lululemon, as I'm sure you know, they always go around, they get out in the community and they're going to everyone's classes. And so I was like on the hunt for my person, like for my mentor, for my teacher. And I found her. I think you're maybe familiar with her, Julie Smearden, who owns Shri Yoga here in Brisbane. And yeah, as soon as I met Julie, she's American and she had just moved here as well. And she was wanting to create community. And yeah, once I started practicing with her, I kind of never looked back. And it's funny, like I started doing my yoga teacher training, like really without that much long-term devoted yoga practice, because Julie was really wanting to grow the Anusara community here in Australia. And so she offered a training and I started to do it. And it was over the course of a year. And towards the end of the year in October, so this was 8 years ago now. So in October, my father died suddenly. And I can get into that a little bit more later, perhaps. But so I had to leave here and come back to Halifax and kind of enter that twilight zone of what was going on there when I was so removed from it here. And then when I came back, so I was at home for about a month, but I had a job here, I had a partner here, I had, like a life here. So I came back to Brisbane, and shortly after I came back, my relationship ended. And I was trying to complete my teacher training. And yeah, I don't know, yoga became like, it just became completely different for me. Obviously, it was a really kind of tumultuous time in my life. And for years to come, really. And yoga and Shri, the studio of Shri and Julie and that community that we had, kind of became like my saving grace, even though, if I'm honest, I didn't really practice that much for quite some time. I really struggled to do asana and I really struggled to show up for a little while. But I completed my training somehow, and like a year or so later decided to leave Lululemon for, a number of reasons and dive into the world of teaching. And I was still totally processing a lot of stuff unbeknownst to me at the time. And I was like, trying to show up for people and trying to understand what I was feeling. And yeah, it was a crazy crazy time. I didn't feel very grounded, but I got a lot of experience under my belt, and I've kind of never looked back. I've been teaching yoga. Well, I don't teach full time now because I have Sunny, but yeah, I've just haven't had another job since. And it's only really,
Mm.
like, if I'm honest, I haven't spoken very much, like in the, in a classroom setting or anything, about my experience with grief. I have a little bit when the time is appropriate, but it's really been, I feel like it must, like, you have been like a pivotal thing, a pivotal presence in my experience to kind of understand what what was happening for me over the past however many years. So thank you for that.
But thank you for like sharing your story and being so open. And like I love just how you took us from, the very beginning. And I love listening to you and in all your journey is and so simple and yet so striking, all at once. And I'm wondering, like I've been reflecting a lot on my own practice, and like I feel when I first started dabbling in yoga or like doing my practice or seeking out my teachers, like my practice was like really regimented,
Mm,
almost like it was like a right and wrong way to do things. And um like I feel when your dad passed away, perhaps you realize like, oh, like yoga is like not what I thought it was. And it
yeah.
was like, like more, then it became like almost like more messy. Anyways, I feel like that within my own story,
Mm,
where it's like, oh, my practice can be more fluid and just more free flow, which I
mm.
really see your practice as such. Can you relate in a way to that? Or have you ever like even like thought
Yeah.
about that? Yeah.
I so the like the Anusara practice itself is not like a vinyasa kind of, fluid movement style, but it is really expansive, and like it's known for being really kind of heart opening. And it comes from a tantric yoga philosophy. So like, obviously you're familiar with the difference between classical and tantric, but for anybody who isn't, tantric yoga philosophy is just kind of, to put it simply, not about beating down the body to find enlightenment. That our bodies at this life is enlightenment, and it's about kind of dancing with the divine while we are here. And I learned all of this in my first teacher training. I'm pretty sure I felt that like philosophy was going in one ear and out the other, even though I wanted to hang on to like every single word. But it was really after my dad died, and after I, like, when I really stepped back into practice as well, that I started, like, that yoga became more than just like doing things, and became more than just the physical practice. It's like I started to understand this pulsation, this spanda, and like I'm not really sure why, but it's like I started to understand all of the philosophy that I had been taught. And then I actually went back and resat my same training again, like 3 years later. And when we were going through the philosophy, I was like, oh my God, like
Wow.
I know this. And I didn't think that I had absorbed it or that I, remembered it, but I was like, I like know this in my cells. This is what I've been experiencing with my father's death and the years to follow. I was having, like, experiencing a lot of like full on anxiety, and like with really physical symptoms. And I was, yeah, not very grounded. And I was like, I did seek out healing and help and support. And I had one healer in particular who Lululemon actually at the time like gifted me sessions with her. And we like still have an ongoing relationship.
Mhm.
And she kind of, I guess, showed me that meditating for me really needed to be like having my feet on the floor and kind of like putting a lid on it, because I was just like, kind of off with the cosmos. Like I was really, I don't really know how else to describe it, but I was really kind of freaking myself out. I was like having all kinds of, it was almost like when my father died, that for the first time I kind of started to experience that the people who are gone and the things that are finished are not separate from what is here. And so that kind of like what is still here physically. And so in regards to like an asana practice, like the breath and the pulsation started to kind of like really come alive instead of just, cutting shapes.
So beautiful, Sheila. And there's a couple things that you said I want to go back on.
Yeah.
This is one of my, I love to say, and perhaps you've heard me say this before, but like just how I think I never gave up on yoga, because the asana practice is really ever evolving for me, and the study, like, the philosophy too. It's like sometimes I've read something like a sutra or something, and like I reread it, years after, and I'm like, oh my God, like I get it, but I like, it's like I get it differently, like it lands deeper in me, like in ways that like I've had more experience of, like, or like I've matured or something, and then it's like, oh my God, like I really get it. And I find like if I if I look back at 15 years ago, I would have been like, oh yeah, like I get everything.
Yes, totally. I
Oh
know it
yeah,
all.
like I get everything. And I love that you've sat your training again.
Mm,
Like such a statement of what, like we could literally do yoga training, the same yoga trainings like every 3 years and
totally.
get something out of it. Do you think so?
Yeah. And I sat it again. It was actually like, it was through my teacher's recommendation, not because she felt like I needed to, but just like for my own nourishment. I was going through a lot and I was super busy and I was kind of like burning the candle at both ends, and I didn't have the money to like travel and, train with other people. And she was like, just come do this again. And I then later on went on to assist her a couple of years later through the training, and there was still stuff that I picked up. Yeah, because, I, Julie always says, like, you're the only one who's going to get sick of your own voice. Like, when we teach, we can say like the same cues for whatever, like warrior two, like over and over again. But like, not everybody hears it every single time we say it. And sometimes you'll say something and it just clicks for people. And it's the same with us, because teachers are maybe not the best students, but we should be the best students.
For those of you who know me, know that I am obsessed with flowers, but also essential oils. I was flipping out, so excited when I came aware of Lightwater Essential Oil Blend Company right here in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. The bottle is so pretty, and there's so many ways to use each blend. From the energetics of chakra work, meditation, or daily uses in headache relief, deeper sleep support, or to tap into a creative space. There's so much to explore and a blend for everyone. My current faves are the Create and Power Blend, but my house will definitely smell of winter woods during the holidays. Lightwater is offering the Chic West community a whopping 20% discount on all regular priced items. Go to Instagram or the website lightwatereo.ca, that's lightwatereo.ca, and use SHE at checkout for a 20% discount. Again, that's capital CHE to explore these blends yourself. Happy holidays! I don't know why people think that teachers are the best students, because I think we're the worst students, and that's why we're teachers.
Yeah.
I love that word, spanda, and perhaps you can speak of us, of perhaps that definition, but also that's something else that I see when I look at you practicing yoga. I've witnessed your practice is just so I can see the spanda of when you practice. You know, Sheila, you're just so embodied, and I'm wondering if you've ever connected that in like with your healing and grief.
Look, I'll be honest. When I was in the thick of it, like it was not graceful. Not, and like I'm sure you can
Mm.
attest to that, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like grace. It feels like a fucking disaster. Like that, you're just falling apart at the seams or like, yeah, flying off with the fairies or something.
Mm.
And but now I kind of, so spanda, for those who don't know the word, spanda means pulsation, and pulsation is an energy that needs to move between 2 points. There needs to be two poles for there to be movement. And so spanda is the journey back and forth between 2 points. And everything is a pulsation. Some of, like, a breath is a pulsation, like a year is a pulsation, a 24-hour cycle, a moon cycle. And so essentially, I guess, just starting to, and I'm still working through it. I still ride the waves of anxiety and receive support for that. And that's just it, is kind of like riding the wave. And at the time, it's not easy to be like, oh yeah, I'll just ride the wave. But it's going to come to an end. Like it started and it's going to stop. And there's, that's one big pulsation. And then there's like many smaller and smaller and smaller within that. So I guess just kind of living by, I mean, even like the life death cycle itself, like as soon as we are born, we're on our way to dying, you know what I mean? And so just kind of, I guess, presence
Yeah.
is key. And it's hard being present when something is challenging or uncomfortable. It's all a part of our cycle, and it's all a part of our life. Something that I've realized or come to understand is if you steer away from being present in the uncomfortable, then you're not really deepening your capacity for being present in the wonderful. So like essentially, it's like, the more you let yourself actually feel things that need to be felt when they're horrible, then the more you kind of like are entitled to this kind of euphoria that I see in you. You you are just literally like the brightest. So many people would meet you, and then to understand or to come to find out what you've been through, they'd be like, how can she be like that? Literally, you're visually so light and energetically so light. But I'm sure you were beautiful 20 years ago as well. But you've earned it. You've earned your right to shine the way that you do. So
Mm.
when you let yourself be, like, go down in the depths of the darkness,
Mm.
then you're entitled to that like ultimate light.
I could just hear you talk all day. Thank you for educating us on Spanda. I think it's a word that not a lot of yoga teachers around here. Anyways, I've done class on Spanda before. I think when we expand on that word, movement makes so much more sense in a way. Like,
Mm,
and I love how do you just say like everything around us, just kind of like prana. Everything is prana when you take a moment to just look at it
mm,
as such. The movement of everything. I love what you said as well about like the steering away. Like I love that you share with us that like even though you were teaching yoga, you were still bypassing grief, you know?
yeah.
Like you didn't feel grounded and like there you were teaching the very thing that you were trying to master.
Yeah.
And like thank you so much for sharing that because like true though because I feel like so many yoga teachers bypass grief whether it be in their own practice or in in teaching like others.
Mm.
And even though we don't talk about it in the class, like I feel it doesn't need to be like overtly like
Mm-hmm.
shared.
Yeah.
Like as long as there's an understanding like within, I think it exudes that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So I'm facilitating a teacher training now, and we're kind of coming towards the end of it. And the other weekend, I was talking about you because I remember, I referred, like I sent one of my students your details and stuff just to have a look at SheQuest. And, she's got her own loss that she's dealing with. So I was talking about you because we were talking about theming and inspiration and whatnot in the last weekend that we were together. And I was saying how, you teach what is real for you. That doesn't mean that you have to like pour your like life's experiences out onto a plate and tell everybody every detail. Like for some people that works. Like for this has become your thing. You've also got like psychology behind you, and you know you've done a lot of work in the grief realm. And like I don't share publicly what's I don't really feel like it's only my story to share, and so I don't share publicly what happened with my father, but I still like it's still a part of me. And so the knowledge that like, not everyone has to have lost someone tragically to experience grief. Like you talk about it all the time, that you don't get the life you signed up for, you don't get the job that you wanted, you don't get the house, like there's all kinds of things that we lose or that we miss out on, that we have to go through the process of letting go. It doesn't always have to be a tragedy, right? And I just think that as like being real but speaking it through your language, for some people that's more kind of esoteric and philosophical, and for some people that's more like dinner table talk and kind of everyday language.
Celebrate your innate talents and radiance with gifts for the creative soul. By me, your muse fairy, Estelle. Visually magic paper products that are proudly painted in coastal Cow Bay, Nova Scotia, and printed locally here in Halifax. This year, I made my third large wall calendar. It is published independently. Each month is bursting with flowers and butterflies to add a spark of magic to your life. And guess what? The SheQuest Planner is back in full force, helping you plan, journal, exercise your creativity. This book is filled with your favorite sheet art and words. I swear, this planner is everything to help you live aware, bold, and whole. Both the Magic Garden Calendar and the SheQuest Planner are seasonal products. And once they are gone, they are gone. Order today at www.estellethompson.com/paper/shop, or simply copy paste the link from your show notes. Happy holidays. I feel too like it's taken me so long to even put words, to it. Like I don't think in the midst of the shock or in the midst, like you can even put words
No.
to it. And even, if I look back, like, no, exactly. And then if I look back, even when I practice and years ago, like I was still exposed to the willingness of experiencing the present moment, even if I was bypassing,
Mm.
things, I think that willingness that, and you were too, when you felt like a mess and you still were teaching yoga. Like, I think there's still that willingness there. And that's this little like entrance that can only get bigger and big and wider to like having these, the glimpse of true bliss,
Yeah.
I love talking with you so much, Ma. What does the term grief, when I say grief, like what does it mean for you?
I think it's just a journey, or yeah, a journey that's going to stay with you depending on the depth of the loss that you've experienced. Yeah, I think that it's not, you can't define what it's going to feel different for everybody, or it's going to show up different for everybody. But I think that it is a journey, and it's like whether or not you are willing to go on that journey is how fluidly eventually you'll come out on the other side of it. But I don't think that it ever leaves. Sometimes I get really, because I'm not super emotional when I talk about my father, and it's weird. I hadn't lived in Halifax for so long. I didn't see him every day, like he wasn't like, we had a great relationship, don't get me wrong, but I live on the other side of the world. So it's not the same as it was for my brother or for my mother, or for those people who, like, I'm removed from it. Like, he's gone, but I'm not reminded of that every day because I already was away from him. So it weirds me out sometimes, like how poised I can be when I talk about it. Like right now, I'm probably like, a little bit like blushy or whatever, but it weirds me out that I don't get more emotional, because I used to have, like, around his birthday or the anniversary of his passing, I used to, well, I still do, like, acknowledge it and do a nice thing on those days, but I used to have to make sure that I didn't have anything to do on those days for fear of, like, a breakdown. And I wanted to be able to, I wanted to, for that to be able to happen. And it doesn't feel like that anymore. But I've also, like, I really have, gone through it. And I really have done a lot of work. I've talked to a lot of people. And interestingly enough, my healer, who I told you about a little while ago, her name is Krista Jane. And she said to me once, kind of early on, like, maybe you just have, like, some people have a more comfortable relationship with death, like whether you knew that or not, than others. And that's not something, of course, that I knew of myself before all of this. But
like, I think a lot of people can relate to that. Like, it's almost like it's so much emotion that, like, in my personal experience, like, sometimes speaking or something, I feel almost like I'm an actor or something when I
yeah.
speak, like, about, like, Tommy or about what I've been through. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so weird. I'm like, shouldn't I, like, not as much anymore, but, like, it means something to me when you said that. Like, it freaks me out. Maybe you should feel more, and at the same time, like, we all, I don't know. It's like there's something there so human.
I mean, life goes on, and it feels insensitive coming out of my mouth for me to say that about, but, like, my life is going on, like, whether I want it to or not, it is. And so I can either let it, or I can be held back, And I just think that, so my father, his death was deemed a suicide, which, like, I don't want to go into the details of anything, but it was all very kind of surprising and a little bit mysterious. And so that added, this kind of extra, like, what the fuck? Like, this massive extra, what the fuck? The whole idea of, like, mental health, even though I had no idea if my father was experiencing mental health problems. Like, it's not something that any of us had any idea about. But now the whole idea of mental health is so sensitive to me. And in times when I felt like, I don't want to say in times when I felt suicidal, but in times when I felt like I can't do this, it's like, but you have to, like, it's not your choice to make. You have to, you're here and this is it. So you got to do it.
Have you heard of the term ambiguous grief?
No.
Because you've mentioned, your dad's death was kind of mysterious.
Hmm.
And almost like, yeah, there wasn't, I mean, I'm sure there was closure, obviously,
Yeah.
but, like, the closure wasn't clear.
Yes.
Am
Yeah,
I understanding it right? Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and also for you being that you're like so removed, like in a way you probably moved to Australia, and I know you were like, so busy and stuff, but it's like losing your life to like in Halifax like that. I'm sure sometimes, like, do you miss home sometimes?
Oh, I miss home way more now than I did when I first left.
Or is Australia home?
Um, Sorry, I mean, I love Australia, but yeah, Australia is home, but I miss Canada and I miss Halifax and I love it. I miss it more and more every time I leave.
But anyways, I'll send that to you, because ambiguous grief, it's I mean, all kinds of grief is so complex, but it deals a lot with, like, because I've heard you say, like, you're so removed,
Mm,
and like, yeah, just to look into that. And also that I find it fascinating that in a way, like, you could go back to Australia and like not mention a thing about it, and like nobody would ever know.
mm,
And it's not like and then if you were in Halifax, like everybody knows here, right? Like it's a
yeah,
different way to process things when like nobody around you,
yeah,
know. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
that you've had to hold this, in a way,
totally.
like so much heavier in that way,
Yeah,
I'll send you that tidbit, but you can even just like Google it.
yeah, yeah, I will.
But talk to us. So your father was a musician.
Yeah, so my father was quite a well-known musician in Halifax. And so when his death was really public, so that was like a whole other thing, that like a whole other weight that kind of came along for
Yeah.
my family, like not that there's tabloids and stuff like that in Halifax, but there is gossip and there is, yeah, so it was a super weird, like even weirder time, I guess, for my family and
Mm.
stuff. And then I just didn't have to, once I left, I just didn't have to deal with all of that stuff anymore.
But you did eventually, I think, process it. And I want to know, like, as the years went on, how did you learn to welcome anxiety or welcome the waves of grief in your body? And you can talk to us about your yoga practice, but
Mm,
you can talk about anything that really has helped to, just be present with these really difficult emotions. And like you've mentioned, just taking a day off, on the anniversary date, which is
mm.
like something I'm still learning to do, like things like that. Like, how can we be present with grief in our bodies, you think?
The thing was, I had never experienced anxiety before. So when I started it was really like it was physically uncomfortable, like it felt really weird, kind of like jittery and, those kind of fast paced, like overstimulated thoughts and kind of energies in your body. Yeah, I didn't like it. And so I have definitely learned, like, I have this mindset that I always have to remind myself of, like, over and over and over again, to just slow down and to, like, I want my life to be like a visual of, or like the epitome of just like strolling barefoot on a beach. Like, I don't want to rush anywhere. I don't like to be in a hurry. It took me years, like as a teacher, to like not overbook myself and to not drive across town when I have to go into traffic and all of these things, and to figure out schedules that worked for me so that I could move at a slow pace, because like I don't feel like I'm someone who's naturally inclined to have like a million plates in the air, trying to do a million things at once. I like to be present and I like to be just kind of focused. And if I'm honest, for a little while that I felt like that was lazy, but it just doesn't work for me to be moving too quickly or to have too much on the go. It doesn't feel good. So that's one thing. And I also have really, like, as much as I love movement and I love a fluid kind of dance like energetic practice, I also love restorative yoga, yin yoga. I do like a lot of pranayama, just really kind of earthing, grounding breath work. Nothing too, I try not to do anything too stimulating, really. So, like, even the past couple nights, I haven't been able to sleep. Like, I don't struggle with sleep ever, but I haven't slept a wink for the past 2 nights. It's crazy. And I was laying down with Sunny this afternoon trying to have a nap, and I still couldn't have a nap. And I just realized how fast my breath was. Like, I was like, it felt like I wasn't I wasn't stressed out. Like, I wasn't thinking that I was stressed out, but my breath seemed like I was on the verge of like a panic attack. And I have come to understand now that anxiety attacks, they can sneak up on you over like the course of an hour or over the course of a day or a couple of days. And an anxiety attack is the product of your breath slowly but surely picking up pace until essentially, there's like hands clutching your throat, you're hyperventilating, your breath is trying to tell you, like, pay attention, your body's trying to tell you, pay attention to me, and you haven't been paying attention to it. So then it, gets to this extreme point. And so today when I was laying with Sunny, I just noticed that. And so I started doing this breath work, just really long breath, like taking time breathing in, taking the time breathing out. And I did drift off, actually. It was only for a few minutes, but it felt like it was the first time that I had slept in days. So then just trying to be outside, trying to be in the ocean, be barefoot, watch the sunrise and the sunset. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're my two favorite times of day when the sky is changing. They're yours as well. I know. I see you.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. And like, if somebody, Sheila, would come to you and say, I've just lost my dad,
Yeah.
like, let's say a same circumstance, what would you tell them, or what would you, I don't know, I don't want to say advice, because I don't know, maybe
Mm.
that sounds bad, but like, what would you recommend for them?
I just think that I have a couple of friends, like a couple of good friends here, actually, that two of them are sisters, and they lost their mother the same year that my father died, but we didn't know each other yet. And then another couple of sisters who lost their father around the same time. And we, like, none of us knew each other yet, but we've all kind of come into this circle of friends after we all experienced these losses. And we all, like, I mean, I'm sure we would have been friends anyway, but kind of formed this special bond around, like, knowing what that feels like. Like, we all, our parents are going to die, but you just don't expect that they're going to die, when they're young, right? And I think that I would just tell them to do what they feel they need to do, because, and I would, I really am so grateful, even though I live so far away from my brother, I'm so grateful to have a sibling and one who I have a good relationship with, because he's the only other person who knows what that was like. Without him, nobody else would understand. And I would tell them to just to talk to their friends, and yeah, talk to whoever they have around them. My friends, like, it's weird because none of my people here, like, I mean, they know my mom now because she's been over here a couple of times, but I went through this massive thing, but like none of my friends here knew my family. And so it was like, also that kind of, but that type of kind of, they were removed from it a little bit as well. But after my ex and I broke up, it's one of the reasons that I decided to stay here, because I didn't really feel like I would be okay without the amazing friends that I had here. I felt like they're the ones that I needed to help me get through it.
It's such an important, like, the support system. I know, and it's something I want to talk just more about, because I know the same for me. Like, I wouldn't have gotten through what I've been through if I didn't have good friends. And
Mm,
also, do you know this quote? I forget who said it. Maybe it's like Rod Stryker, but says, if you don't have time to meditate, just make sure you have good friends, type of thing.
yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm curious, I get really inspired by knowing other women, like personal tools for self growth. We've obviously mentioned your yoga practice and, talking to your friends and breathing, a lot of breathing, kind of slow breath. Is there anything else you do like as like tools for self growth?
Well, prior to being a mama, I did a lot of dancing. I dance a little bit at home now, but yeah, I loved a good boogie and spent a good portion of my time doing that. I also, like, I speak to a psychologist once a month or something, and that's like a relatively new development, like just from the beginning of this year, really. But I have had kind of ongoing, like someone, whether it be Krista Jane or different professionals of different wellness realms that I've spoken to. And I just think like taking care of yourself and doing things that feel good, like taking care of your body, getting body work, getting massages. And, I don't understand really the ins and outs of kinesiology or, or like that, Reiki or anything. But if you're feeling like when I'm feeling out of balance or off center, whether it's energetically or physically, I do try to source someone and take time to get that sorted. I'm a really big advocate for massage.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that because I feel as for us, like as yoga teachers or anybody that literally uses their bodies
Yeah.
as instrument,
Mm.
it needs to be a priority. Like getting a massage is like a duty,
Well, it's just maintenance, isn't it? Like, yeah, it's just me. I remember when I just started thinking, I started realizing, like, wait a second, yeah, I use my body. I mean, we all use our bodies, but like I use my body like very physically all the time. And I need to take care of it like on a professional level, but I want to take care of it because it's my vessel, and you shouldn't have to wait until you're in agony before you go get looked after. It's about maintaining, not fixing.
Amen. Amen to that. The last two questions are just quick answers. Are you ready, Sheila?
I'm ready.
Do you have a favorite mantra?
Slow down.
Do you have a favorite flower?
Daisy.
Oh. How about a book that you've read, a favorite book you've read about grief or death?
One of my favorite. Do you know Pixie Lighthorse?
Yes.
Yeah, so I read, like, I've got a couple of Pixie's books, and maybe about a year ago, I just picked up her Honoring Grief. That book is a perfect example. So there's all of these different prayers for honoring grief of all types. Like it's not only losing a loved one. There's all of these different things that really deserve to be honored when they leave our existence.
I don't have her book, but I follow her on Instagram and I'm putting a note to get her book
Yeah.
because I think I love it. And what about, do you listen to podcasts at all? I know you're a busy mom, but
Yeah.
do you listen to podcasts at all?
I do. I listen to yours. And and you know what? I mean, I don't listen to that many if I'm honest, but I listened to one by Kate Hudson called Sibling Revelry, just about, and they just interview her, and her brother interview like all these famous people and their siblings, just about like family dynamics and stuff, which I find really interesting. And I listened to Rival and Queen from Halifax.
I don't know that one. What?
So, and I like a friend of mine was on it, and that's when I like saw it on her Instagram. And I don't know the girls who host it, but I think I really like listening to everybody and their accents, and just like, I don't know, I mean, it's interesting. They interview about like a wide array of things, but I feel like it's just I relate to it or something, just knowing that they're in Halifax. Oh, and Sick
Yeah.
Boy.
I love that you do that. I kinda do that sometimes with, like,
Yeah.
French music or, like, French things. You just listen, you're just like, "Ah," like,
Yeah,
a balm for my soul.
totally.
And how about, like, a favorite treat? Do you have it could be food, but it can be something else.
Oh my God. I love treats. There's like an amazing gelato place that's very close to my old house. It's a bit of a drive now, but it's just literally like the best. It is the best. That is my favorite. Whatever, like they have all these different flavors all the time, and it's always so hard to choose because it's all so delicious.
Gelato,
I
so
know. I
good.
know.
All right, so my last question is it's a loaded one, but I have faith I have faith in you.
Okay.
I've been kind of changing the format of it because I feel this past year or since this whole pandemic and being kind of more isolated, it's kind of like almost like a new world we're like building in a way. And I want to know, like, knowing now, what you know about grief and like just your own story of processing, grief and death. Like, what do you wish like women to know about its magic and about what we are like almost like rebuilding right now?
Well, just what I was saying to you before about like with you can't have like the lightest light without allowing the darkest dark.
Mm,
It's not that you only deserve to be you only deserve the good if bad things have happened to you. But like when tough things happen, if you bypass them, then you're never gonna go to the other end of the spectrum of that like extreme euphoria. And so, I mean, if we're looking at the state of the world right now, we have to be optimistic, don't we? um, and if it's this heavy and it's this dark, then like what beauty is on the other end of that spectrum, you know?
mm,
And even like if you look at the the isolation and all of this stuff that happened, and I know it was different for everybody, and like a lot of people have experienced a lot of hardships and whatnot in that, but this coming together and like reconnecting a family and this simplifying and slowing down and moving away from the fast paced work life that everybody is driven by all of the time was very easily seen, like very quickly, when we all had to start staying home. I mean, it was frustrating, I'm sure, for a lot of people being at home, but it's also like my partner was at home for 2.5 months. He wasn't working. And like, he's got a little 2-year-old boy that he's usually gone from 9 hours a day. How beautiful.
mm.
Well, hopefully we'll never have another lockdown. Like, um, it's unlikely that that's going to happen again, that type of time.
I believe that too. I love, yeah, the closeness and the
Yeah.
simplicity. I want to thank you for your time, and I know you don't share this often, and you're such a gift, and your story is such a gift. And already, I when I was listening to you, I know I find myself in your story, and I think so many women will find themselves in your story. And so I want to just thank you for the privilege to hear it out, and your presence, and you're so knowledgeable, and I'm just so proud to call you my friend.
Oh,
I really am. And I want to know how can we support you, and where can we find you?
where can you find me? Well, I'm Sheila Ferguson Yoga on Instagram, and that's all I have. I've just actually, speaking of simplifying, I've just expired my web page and everything, just kind of moving away from feeling like I need to self promote, like promote myself as a business instead of just,
Mm,
I just want to, like, I'm still teaching, but I just want to be a mom and not have to only be identified as a yoga teacher. But I'm still Sheila Ferguson Yoga on Instagram. And if you're ever in Brisbane, hit me up and I'll tell you where you can physically find me.
You got it. You got it. And I'll be back.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much. And we'll see you soon, Sheila. Okay?
Yeah,
Bye.
beautiful. Bye.
This podcast was produced by Tosh Taylor of the Podcast Hub Productions. Find her online at podcasthub.ca.